You probably think ancient travelers just hoped to stumble upon food and medicine. You believe their long journeys were purely about courage and sheer luck. But that's not the whole story. These epic quests were fueled by a hidden science, a deep understanding of nature's pantry. They knew exactly which 10 plants to carry, turning hostile lands into their grocery store and pharmacy. Get ready to see how a few leaves and roots changed everything. So, what did travel look like before this secret knowledge? Let's put it this way. On Magellan's famous trip around the world, 270 men set out. Only 18 made it back. That wasn't a one-off tragedy. For long journeys, that was just the reality. Most of these people didn't die in epic battles or storms. They died from things like scurvy, infection, and starvation. Simple problems that became a death sentence when you were thousands of miles from home. But some groups had an edge, an almost unfair advantage. They knew that the wilderness wasn't an enemy. It was a resource. They just had to know what to look for. This knowledge was their real survival kit. And today, we're unlocking it. We're counting down the 10 essential plants that meant the difference between life and death for ancient explorers. Number 1, garlic. What if your medicine cabinet could fit in your pocket? For ancient explorers, it did. You might think of garlic as just something to flavor your food, but for them, it was a lifesaver. On a long trip, even a small cut could get infected and become a death sentence. There were no antibiotics, but there was garlic. Ancient cultures knew it was a powerful germ killer. Roman soldiers were given it for strength, and Egyptian pyramid builders ate it to stay healthy and keep working. For sailors on a crowded ship, garlic was their best defense against sickness. It helped them fight off infections and stay healthy, thousands of miles from a doctor. Number 2, ginger. What if the worst part of a voyage wasn't the storms, but the constant gut-wrenching nausea? For ancient sailors, seasickness was a miserable reality that could leave a person too weak to even stand. But seafaring cultures in Asia had a powerful secret. They always packed ginger root. Chewing on a small piece or drinking it as a tea could settle a churning stomach, making life on the rough seas bearable. And its power wasn't just for sailors. On land, it helped fight the inflammation from long days of walking, easing sore muscles so explorers could keep moving. Number 3, turmeric. This golden spice wasn't about filling an empty stomach. It was about saving your skin. Literally, what if the most dangerous part of an expedition wasn't a wild animal, but a simple cut on your hand? In the ancient world, any open wound was an invitation for a deadly infection. But explorers carrying supplies from Asia had a powerful first aid secret. They would pack dried turmeric powder directly onto a cut. It worked as a natural antiseptic, cleaning the wound and forming a protective barrier to stop infections before they started. Even better, its anti-inflammatory powers helped reduce pain and swelling, letting them heal on the move. They could patch up their bodies. But how did they fight a silent killer that rotted you from the inside out? Number 4, aloe vera. What if your biggest enemy wasn't an animal or an illness, but the sky itself? For anyone crossing a scorching desert or sailing under a relentless sun, a serious burn was a constant danger. They couldn't pack a bottle of after-sun lotion, so they brought the entire plant. Explorers would keep aloe with them, a living first aid kit. If someone got burned, they'd just snap off a thick, fleshy leaf and squeeze out the cool gel inside. Spreading it over the skin gave them instant relief from the pain and heat. It also helped the skin heal faster, preventing blistering and infection. It was nature's perfect answer to the unavoidable threat of the sun. But while aloe fixed the outside, what about a threat from within? Number 5, mint. A terrifying disease on the open ocean wasn't always some dramatic plague. Often, it was the slow, miserable sickness from bad food and questionable water. A crew crippled by stomach cramps was a sitting duck. That's where mint became an absolute game changer. Just chewing on a few leaves or making a simple tea could settle an upset stomach and stop nausea in its tracks. But mint had a secret dual purpose. Its sharp, clean scent was also known to wake up the mind and improve focus. For a sailor on a long night watch, that little mental boost was critical. It was the ultimate 2-for-1. It fixed your gut and focused your brain. But while mint protected the crew, what protected their most precious cargo? Number 6. Sage. What if your most precious cargo wasn't gold, but the food that kept you alive? On a long journey, meat and other supplies going bad was a death sentence. But ancient travelers had a secret weapon: sage. This wasn't just for flavor. Rubbing dried sage on meat was like a natural preservative, stopping the bacteria that caused deadly spoilage. It extended the life of their food for weeks. And it had a double purpose. Chewing on a sage leaf was the ancient equivalent of mouthwash. It disinfected the mouth, treated painful gum sores, and soothed sore throats, stopping small infections before they could turn serious. It kept both the food and the crew from rotting. But what did they use for a deep, painful wound that needed more than just a leaf? Number 7. Rosemary. For a deep wound, they needed more than just a leaf. They would turn rosemary into an antiseptic wash, using its powerful oils to clean out cuts and prevent deadly infections. And its benefits went deeper than the skin. After a grueling day, explorers would rub a rosemary-infused oil into their aching muscles, helping their bodies recover faster. But its most surprising power was for the mind. Ancient sailors and scholars carried rosemary on long journeys, believing it sharpened their memory. For a navigator trying to recall a complex star chart or a coastline, this was an absolute lifesaver. It was the ultimate tool for keeping both the body and the brain from getting lost. But what about threats you couldn't see, like the venom from a snake bite? Number 8. Chamomile. A snake bite is a threat you can see. But what about the invisible poison of pure exhaustion? For an explorer, a tired mind could be just as deadly as any venom. Days of stress and nights with little sleep would wear a person down, leading to fatal mistakes. So what did they do when they couldn't shut their brains off? They brewed a simple tea from these tiny, daisy-like flowers. Chamomile was their secret to forcing the mind and body to rest. It calmed frayed nerves, settled an anxious stomach, and brought on the deep sleep they desperately needed to survive. This wasn't medicine for a wound, but for the soul-crushing weariness of the journey itself. But what happened when they needed the exact opposite of rest? A powerful jolt of energy to keep going. Number 9. Fennel. Sometimes the energy to keep going didn't come from a sudden boost, but from silencing the one thing that could break a person's will: a starving stomach. When food was scarce, hunger wasn't just uncomfortable, it was a deadly distraction. But ancient travelers, from Greek messengers to Roman soldiers on long marches, had a simple trick. They chewed fennel seeds. This humble plant was a powerful appetite suppressant, literally fooling the body into feeling full. It allowed them to push on for hours, conserving precious rations and keeping their minds focused on the mission, not their empty bellies. It also helped soothe an upset stomach, preventing the cramps that could cripple a journey. But what did they do when the problem wasn't a nagging hunger, but raw, blinding pain? Number 10. Willow bark. What do you do for raw, blinding pain when you're hundreds of miles from help? A broken bone or a raging fever wasn't just an obstacle. It was a potential death sentence. But ancient peoples knew a secret that grew on trees. They would strip bark from a willow and either chew it or brew it into a bitter tea. This was nature's original painkiller. It could bring down a dangerous fever and dull the kind of agonizing pain from an injury that would stop someone in their tracks. Sound familiar? It's because this bark contains the original natural version of what we now call aspirin. For an explorer, this was the difference between giving up and pushing through. These weren't just 10 random plants. They were an entire survival toolkit, turning hostile wilderness into a literal grocery store and pharmacy for ancient travelers. This hidden science, this deep understanding of nature, wasn't just about getting by. It was about absolute resilience, If these ancient plants still hold such powerful hidden lessons, what other forgotten wisdom is waiting to be uncovered? Join me on the next journey into history's surprising secrets. Hit subscribe and don't miss what we unlock next.